everyone. Yesterday I had a few people asking me about controllers and what exactly they did and how they can be useful and how to set them up in the FX8. So let me just say off the bat that one of the very first things I saw online that made me want to buy an FX8 was someone using controllers to automate a filter. And to me, that functionality is something that I had used for years in a DAW when recording music, not necessarily guitars, but recording music. And it had often been something that I thought someone could make like a good guitar pedal equivalent of, I guess you could say, where you could have some kind of like a kind of electronic-y kind of filter sweeping kind of thing in a pedal. One of the frustrating things about that is often to get those kind of electronic filter sweeps, you actually have to adjust two parameters at once. And so like a normal expression pedal might not be the best choice if you're just going to try to push a low pass filter around. So anyway, I thought, putting aside all of that, I just thought I would see if I could give you guys a pretty quick and lo-fi, as usual, demonstration of what controllers are, how to set them up, and what they can do. Now, this is not meant to be comprehensive, how to do everything with every controller kind of thing like that, and it's certainly not meant to tell you that this is the only thing you can do with controllers. It's just an example of how easy it is to set something up and the kind of positive benefits it can have to take that dive into the world of controllers, as far as being able to make really kind of creative things that you couldn't just make if you just are always inserting blocks and twisting a few knobs. Now again, lots of people that are just playing certain kinds of music, frankly music that is a lot more popular than the kind of music that I would often make with when I'm messing around with controllers. They may never find a need for a controller other than setting up a volume pedal or a wah pedal or something like that. But I think that a lot of people see the potential, or at least can kind of sense the potential of controllers, and kind of wish, if I knew how to do that, or if I wasn't so nervous about doing it, then maybe I could, just do it every once in a while for a cool little effect here and there. So anyway, let's get started. Enough of me babbling. I just wanted to give a little bit of background of why I like controllers and why you might be interested in this. So I am here in a completely empty preset that I created just for this. No foot switches, no... go here, see, sorry. No foot switches, no effects, no nothing. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of drive, just because everybody likes drive. Now I have actually done some pretty crazy things with drive in the past, just because I like them. One thing I did with drive, just to give you some idea, was sometimes I feel like when if you have a very dynamic drive pedal, kind of harder you hit it, the brighter it gets, if you know what I mean. So sometimes something that sounds good when you're playing pretty softly, when you hit it really hard, it can become a bit too bright or kind of ice picky or something. And so one of the first things I experimented with controllers was setting a controller so that the harder I hit it, hitting it harder turned the tone knob down. So basically, the harder I hit it, the lower the tone knob went. Kind of an inverse relationship between the dynamics of my playing and the brightness of the sound. Now, I'm not saying that was any kind of huge success or anything like that, and people should do it. But it was really interesting, and it helped me kind of understand how these things work, and just see that almost anything is possible that you could think of with these. So anyway, here is my clean sound. I'm playing a Hackstrom guitar into a custom-made Gregorius amp. I'm recording this. I'm recording this with a Zoom H5, which is just set up close to the amp for a kind of roomy guitar sound. So anyway, as you can see, it's a very clean guitar sound, which is what I always do. Here's our drive. It's probably a bit loud. Right. So what I am going to do is just something very, very, very simple, which is I'm going to put a filter here. And this is going to be a, sorry, it's communicating. I'm going to make this a bandpass filter. So I don't care what that sounds like. And if I move this frequency, and I can make that a little bit less extreme by but it's still pretty extreme. Now, whenever you see a knob that has one of these little, I don't even know what you call it, kind of looks like two brackets with lines on them. I'm assuming that there's an official name for it, but I just call that the controller symbol. So whenever you see that little controller symbol there, if you right click on it, you get this thing here that says Edit Modifier. Now, this modifier screen, when you first see it, it looks pretty intense. Like all these knobs, lots of them that have words that you're not used to when you think about guitar. Slope, scale, well, maybe that's a musical thing, maybe not. Offset, damping, off value, and then min, max, start, mid, end. And these might kind of, you might be able to figure out what these kind of things do. But anyway, so if I look at this and I still play, opening up this window has done nothing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell the FX8 that we want something other than our mouse or our hands on the box controlling that knob. And in this case, we want to say the source of that control is one of these things here. Now, if you've ever set up any sort of external pedal control, you have been on this screen before, but you probably just skipped right way down here and not really done anything else with this. Right now, I'm going to do something a little bit different than that, and I'm going to choose LFO1. Now, the second I do that, you see this little ball zipping back and forth on the screen. Zip, 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 zip. And if I play, there's a correlation between the knob on the screen and that ball as it's moving. I'll see if I can move this screen out of the way. I'll be able to now. So anyway, if you just remember that little ball for a second. Now, you see the frequency knob, and it's going all the way from the bottom to all the way to the top. So I'm going to go back in that for a second. So there are settings for the LFO itself, which we'll look at in a minute. But I just want to show you a tiny little bit of what some of these things do, because they're really, really helpful at getting the sound that you want. So the first one I'm going to show you is damping. And what damping does is it kind of acts like, it's like somebody put a weight or something on this. And so, hang on, you'll see what I mean. So if I bump this thing way up, so it has the same amount of time to do its movement, but it can't go as far. So now it doesn't go all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. So if I play, it's a lot less extreme. As a matter of fact, if I put the stuff damping way, way up, it's hanging out right in the middle, more or less. And if we close the window, we see, look, the knob reflects that. Just right in the middle, and that's just, we've weighted it so it can't, I don't really even know why it's called weighting, to be honest with you. But what the weighting does basically is it greatly reduces the range of that sweep, but it doesn't change the time in which it's doing the sweep, if you see what I'm saying. So we can also do things like, I'm going to put this damping back down so we can see what some of these other knobs do. There we go. So we got more or less a full thing again. So I'm going to start doing some of these other things. So start changes where the bottom is. So what that means is the knob is not going to go all the way to the bottom. It's going to go a certain percentage down. In this case, it's going to get 25.7% up from the bottom. So that's like 25%. This is 0%, would be the knob all the way to the left. And this is 25.7%. And if I do end, then this is 81%. So now there is something slightly different, because you could say to yourself, let me do this, that, that we're still having the same kind of frequency range now as when we had the damping. Like, it's never getting all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top. But what's actually happening is the timing is changing, if you will, because we're not just hanging out in the middle, which is I don't know. Here, I'll play it and you can hear exactly what it sounds like. It just sounds like it's taking a bit longer to go the full frequency range. And it's not really. That time sweep is exactly the same, but it just sounds a little bit different. So I guess the reason why I'm showing you that is because just because you might do the damping and say, well, that's not quite exactly right, but I'm never going to get it right because I don't have any other options. Well, you do. This start and end can have a big effect on it. And if I change the mid, all of a sudden, we get something completely different. Here, let me pull this down even more. Look at this. Madness. Heyo. That's a completely... So, let's just leave that alone for a second, and let's just go to a slightly different screen. I want to show you something. So anyway, now that should give you, I think, at least a start. We won't even go into kind of the advanced functionality here, but just that should give a bit of a start as to how to start messing, and hopefully a little bit of kind of bravery to know that if you go in and mess with these things, it's not really a big deal. And hey, guess what? If I hate this, you know what I can do? And now it's completely back to normal. That's it. Just switch it back to none, and it's all back to normal. Now, I've switched back to LFO1. Hang on a second. And by doing that, since I didn't save it, I have now done this. So I have to redo it real quick. So anyway, I'm going to just do this, and then pull this way down. And as you can see, we're at a slightly different... I haven't recreated it exactly, and so again, this produces a different effect. Really, really low on one end. But of course, I can do this the other way around. And of course, if I also, just one more thing, if I do the damping here, look what happens. So, you know, I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless in many, many ways. So now, actually, let me put this back up a tiny bit here. So something a bit more extreme. Over here. A little bit more. Now, You're definitely going to hear that. So we're not controlling the time it takes for that little ball to move from one end of that line to the other with that screen. In order to do that, and for some other options, we're going to go over to this page, which is called Controllers. And this says controllers are used as sources in modifiers, which sounds a bit like mumbo jumbo, but if we look at what this is actually doing here, we were using LFO1. So this says LFO1 and 2, so that means this is LFO1, this top part, and this bottom part is LFO2. So the tempo here does exactly what it does on like a delay pedal. So if I set this to 8th notes, right? I can also say, change the shape of it. So that's pretty cool, right? I mean, that was very little work, and we got kind of a cool sound, which is not quite a tremolo, it's not quite a chorus, it's not quite a phaser, it's not quite a wah pedal. It's something that we just made ourselves, and that's deadly. So I'm going to just save this. Lessons learned, huh? So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to our effects. We still have this thing here. Let's go look and see. Now you might want to change the range that this thing has the ability to operate on. And so I just brought down the high frequency. I can also bring up the low frequency. To me, that's deadly, and that was just a couple of clicks, really. I mean, aside from all my chit-chat, it was just a couple of clicks, and all of a sudden, we have something really cool and unique to us. So if I go, and I'm going to just jump here real quick and add a tremolo. And let's see what we get here. Okay, well that's a little bit strange. But so what I'm going to do here is I am going to say so normal kind of tremolo sound. Turn it a tiny bit. So a normal tremolo sound, no big deal, nothing all that exciting. However, I'm going to switch this tempo back to none, and we're going to do something totally crazy. See this rate here? Back in this screen. And now I'm going to say source LFO1. So all of that stuff that we did previously with LFO1, as far as setting the tempo and stuff on the LFO screen and over here in the controllers, that's now going on here as well. So if you look, the rate of the tremolo is now connected to that same LFO, which is totally strange. But again, like the point of this is not to make something that's like perfect for every song. It's about like, you know, if there is a way to allow you to be more creative and to get something that is uniquely you when you're trying to write a song or learn somebody else's kind of thing that they spent 2 months in the recording studio creating, then like these kind of things can be massively powerful tools to make effects that you could not normally make without them. So anyway, I'm going to do something slightly different here, and I'm going to change this from LFO1 to envelope. So what in the world is that going to do? Okay, it's kind of hard to hear with this filter on, so I'm going to turn the filter off. I'm going to turn the filter off. Come back here. So what we just did there is we just recreated about 14 different tremolo pedals that cost a lot of money. or something on the Mobius that everybody loved, which is we made it so that the rate of the tremolo is directly tied to how hard we hit the strings on the guitar. So the quieter the sound gets, the slower the tremolo gets. And if we start doing, whoops, oh, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do at all. We're controlling that tempo with this thing. So if I go here for a second, just turn this delay on, and I'm going to use something you can hear pretty well. So again, what we're having here is we're having rhythmic kind of interplay, and one of those things is being tied to our an envelope. And that kind of stuff, hang on, I'm just do this a tiny bit more, is extremely, extremely, extremely cool and can create all sorts of really unique effects. Well, at least I think they're pretty unique effects. And if we do this, we get yet a different effect. And let me just do something a little bit. And sure, we've got this feedback set here like this, but you know what? Instead of that, I'm going to set this feedback to the envelope again. And I'm going to make sure that the feedback, there's always a bit of feedback going on here. Now, to my mind, you know, it took a bit of messing around, but to my mind, that's deadly. And look here, I set the damping, and which makes the extremes a little bit less extreme. And now, I think that's awesome. Like, I mean, you know, maybe it's not your cup of tea, but I think the way that that kind of dies out is really, really, really cool. And the way that you can kind of build it up to be, you know, a lot more kind of spacey and atmospheric simply by playing hard for a longer period of time and dumping more feedback into that delay and stuff like that is really, 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 really cool. And I mean, those are just very, very, very simple examples of this kind of thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and I am going to put this filter block down here. Oops, put this filter block down here. Put this filter block down here, and put this delay block here. I'm just basically trying to clear myself some space, but I don't want to lose that stuff. And put this here, and scoot this down here. Now, I suppose I could have had one of these made earlier, but anyway, you'll get to see how I do it, which may or may not make you regret watching this video. All right, so I'm going to take my compressor here, and I'm going to take my pitch block. And I got to say, you know, firmware 3, the CPU usage, I feel, is significantly lower, and that's awesome to me. Now, one thing I have noticed about the pitch block and the synth block is that the synth block and the pitch block both seem to react a lot better, or track a lot better, I should say, if there's a compressor in front of them. And when I say if there's a compressor in front of them, I mean a compressor. I don't mean some wimpy 2x ratio compressor. I mean like a proper stupid compressor. So I'm going to put this compressor up here. So I'm going to turn off this delay for a minute and turn off this tremolo for a minute and come back in here for a sec. And this seems like it might be a bit loud. So one thing I always like to do with my fixed harmony, wow, why is that like that? Oh. Actually, you know what, I'll just do this first. So, to me, that sounds spot on as far as tracking goes. So nobody thinks I'm cheating. Now, the pitch, we know we have all these different things like the arpeggiator, which I'm sure some of you have used. I'm going to show you something slightly different here. I'm going to go to this voice 1 shift, which we know is just in steps. And I'm going to say the source here is the sequencer. All right, I'm not going to mess with this for a second. I'm just going to come back over here to controllers and go down to sequencer. Holy moly, right? Watch this. what's going on here is that this says 100 and this says 0. If I go back and I look at my, if I go back here to my pitch block and I look at this here, I see that the min is 2 octaves down and the max is 2 octaves up. So when I go to that sequencer screen and set it at 100%, I'm going up to 2 octaves up. The negative 24 here, the 2 octaves down, means when it's at 0, it's going 2 octaves down. So if I go back to this controller here and go back to the sequencer, so this is 2 octaves down. So if I set this at 50%, I believe, it's like 49%, 50%. So if I go back here and I go back here to my pitch block and I set the mix to, let's just type this in, 100%. And like, obviously that's pretty annoying as a sound. But the point is not to make like the most awesome sound ever, but to give you some ideas of how various controllers work and what you might be able to use them for. And like, so hang on, so So anyway, this video has been going on for a long time at this point, so I should probably knock it on the head. And really, all I wanted to do was just get you guys kind of accustomed to thinking about these things and how all the various screens connect together and not be scared of using them and see all the things you can do with them. You know, realistically, you can do just about anything, from completely insane effects to really subtle, just kind of swirling kind of sounds, to, I mean, something that a lot of people would even consider doing with this is doing stuff like gating effects. So the harder you hit it, the more dominant it is, or the less dominant it is. So as the sound fades out, the effect fades up. And like, I've done that myself where I've tried to have the reverb only on the tail of notes, like a gated reverb kind of thing. But when I use controllers, like, I can connect 2 or 3 effects together, so I can have the delay tails and the reverb tails gated in exactly the same way. Or you could even have it so that when you hit the guitar hard, it's clean, but it fades into distortion. You know, which is a really interesting effect that you might really like at some point. And if you were sitting around with your computer doing it, you could easily figure out how to do that. You know, clone a track, run one through the distortion, then do a crossfade kind of thing like that, or whatever. But live, the ability to do those kind of things live in real time and have them react to your playing is something that I find completely expressive and kind of inspiring, and something that I use all the time to just kind of get me going and say, like, hey, you know, is there a new idea? You know, is there something to make me excited to play guitar today? And some of these things really do get me excited to like sit down with my computer and, you know, or with the FX8 and its screen and just poke at it and, you know, try to come up with some new sounds to make me, you know, happy to spend a couple hours with the guitar on days when I am not necessarily feeling it otherwise. So anyway, I hope this has been beneficial. You guys know where to find me on the Fractal Forum. If you have any questions at all or have any video requests, just ask. And if I can do it, I will certainly do it. If I can't do it, I will recommend that Chris at the AxeFX tutorials does it. And again, like I said yesterday on that other video, if you, in case you missed it, really go watch his videos, because that guy is an expert at this stuff, and I'm just sitting here trying to help people because maybe I know something you guys don't, or maybe there's somebody has a question that he doesn't have time to answer because he's too busy making really professional stuff for you guys, and I'm just here dicking around. But at any rate, if there's something I can help you with, just ask me. Always pay attention to what he's doing as well, because he's doing great stuff. And that's it. I hope you guys have found this useful and enjoyable, and you know, have fun. Really, that's the end of the day. Just have fun, be creative. That's it.